Hi everybody!
Thanks Keymailer for the review code. Though I don't think Secret Item Games is going to thank me after this review, because I'm absolutely going to be roasting this game. I actually wonder how often I'm going to curse throughout this review. Godo, if you can pop up a square counter throughout this video, that'd be great. Look, I'm always going to be thankful when I get to review games thanks to getting a review copy. It's always a goodwill gesture on the developer and publisher's part, so I'm not going to shit on that aspect. Also, no developer wants to make a shitty game, especially indie companies where these are often year-long passion projects. But there's no other way of saying this. Paperman Adventure Delivered is simply put, a bad game. Don't get me wrong, I wanted to love this game, because I love 3D Collect-a-thon platformers. Beyond JRPGs and fighting games, these are the types of games I absolutely live for. But the world of 3D platformers is in a very sorry state right now, and games like this is partially why. It's kind of sad that the formula, which is so simple on paper, yes, I know, bad pun, was seemingly perfected in the 90s, and it hasn't evolved much since. You can roast me for the pun now, Godo.
I'm gonna say it outright, your puns are horrible. Get to work on that. Holy shit, I've never seen so many bad puns in my life.
You'd think with the state tech is currently in, we'd have been able to push past the limitations of what caused a bad 3D platformer in the first place. Before I get into what makes Paperman such a poor example of a platformer, I feel like I need to lay down the ground rules as to what makes a bad example of one. Some of what I'm about to say also applies to 2D platformers as well. Those are having a bit of a resurgence thanks to indie-developed Metroidvanias. I got an initial impressions video of Biomorph in the works, so subscribe if you'd like to see a Canadian tackle a Canadian-made Metroidvania. So, part of what comprises a bad 3D platformer is a bad camera. What do I mean by a bad camera, though? Typically, a bad camera is one that has difficulty following the player and their actions, or one that sits at an awkward angle. This is one thing Paperman does exceptionally poorly, but more on why later. But, okay, I can live with a bad camera if the platforming itself is satisfying. Again, this is something else this game fails to deliver on. Well, I know Godo's roasting me for that pun. I swear, I'm not trying to shoehorn in as many paper-based and mail-related puns into this script as possible.
I swear to God, I will be bashing my head in before the end of this video. The puns are so bad, it just takes my will to live away.
Okay, so back to what makes a poor excuse for a 3D platformer. Usually if the platformer is mediocre, it can at least be saved if it has good combat. Sometimes, these games are light on the platforming and good in the combat department. Just look at the Ratchet & Clank games. Those stopped being heavily focused on the platforming side years ago, and lean more heavily on the combat side of things. The platforming is just icing on the cake there. The combat and silly weapons are the main appeal. Again, this is an area where Paperman fails to deliver. The combat feels like an afterthought in a game that feels like it wasn't given any polishing. So, what is the main draw of this game? It's the co-op aspect, which I imagine might be fun, if you're fucking shit-faced. As a single-player experience, it's painful, since you have to constantly switch between the various characters to get the platforming done and to advance the game. So let's get into why this game fails so badly. Remember how I mentioned the camera being bad earlier? That's strike one. It causes a lot of blind spots when you're just doing basic shit. But again, if the platforming itself is satisfying, I can live with that. But this is where Paperman fucking sucks yet again. The platforming feels different for each character, which I guess makes sense, as the gimmick here is each character can only do select platforming challenges. Which, you know what, I can get behind, but the design choice to tie switching characters to the mailbox causes a lot of unnecessary backtracking, which causes the game's pace to slow right down. Now, I don't mind methodical platforming sometimes, as that can be enjoyable. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Frogun, another game I was given a review copy of, go and check that review out when you're done here. Frogun at least had some semblance of quality to it, and while it was unrefined in many ways, it at least felt like it was a finished game. Paperman Adventure Delivered just feels like a proof of concept that was made in Unity and then put onto storefronts. Even on the PS5, which is the system I'm reviewing this game on, the game lags like crazy every once in a while, and switching between characters can take up to 10 seconds. As for the platforming itself, it almost feels as sluggish as tank controls without being that, and characters have a tendency to hit surfaces with a thud even though they should be very lightweight. Only one character actually feels properly weighted, and that's the one with the green color scheme. Fucked if I can remember the character's name though. That's how unremarkable all of the character designs are. But even that character I have some problems with, since they can be blown off course by a simple gust of wind, which is used for their platforming segments. So it fails at doing the one thing it's supposed to be good at. Dare I say how shitty the combat is? It's one button to attack, and it feels like your attacks do nothing. All because of the camera. You're more likely to be hit than actually damage your enemy. I know someone's going to say shut up, it's a skill issue. To that, I say you shut up. If you think that's a skill issue, you don't know me. I've completed the Crash Bandicoot games multiple times, the so-called Dark Souls of platformers. I bet next time we have a Crash game, I'll have to do a rant video on that topic, since normies seem to compare every fucking thing to Dark fucking Souls. Anyways, if you found this review helpful so far, hit the like button. If you're looking for a competently made platformer, look elsewhere, because this one is quite easily the worst 3D platformer I've ever played. Hell, it's probably one of the worst games I've ever played. This is literally Bubsy 3D levels of fucking shit. So what's my rating for Paperman Adventure Delivered? It's a 1 out of 10. It's easily one of the worst games I've ever had the misfortune of playing, and because of the design choices, there's no way this game could be salvaged. At least with games like Hellpie or Frogun, you can see the makings of greatness in them. With this, it feels like the game was designed by an alien who'd only ever had bad platformers described to them. I can see why this game escaped my attention when it released late last year. Nothing about it is fucking good. If you want to experience a platformer that's actually good, go and play A Hat in Time. It's still the best indie 3D platformer I've experienced to date, and it's clear the developers knew what they were doing and had passion for the project. Thanks go out to my current channel members, R. Campbell and Dani Boy. If you want to help the channel out further and get exclusive content, then hit the join button or the link in the description. Want more of my videos? Then check out my review of Frogun. At least there's some fun to be had with that game, and who knows, you might find a new favorite. Or check out whatever video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy. Until next time, keep blazing that trail.